fighting for survival. From year 2100 to year 2200s. While the deterioration of the planet worsened, technology continued to flourish. However, the extreme distress suffered by humanity started to undermine our ability to implement the amazing innovations created by our augmented and artificial minds. It became clear that we were in the middle of a race for survival, and the cause of this situation was also our best chance to get out of it. Technology. Technology was our only hope of survival and savorth as we knew it. Mind cloning. Throughout the new century, the augmentation of the human brain reached a new level of sophistication. All functions of our brain dedicated to the control of our organs and memory could be replaced by synthetic devices. However, the full transfer of human consciousness into artificial mediums posed enormous technical difficulties in addition to ethical and philosophical issues. It was only through the phenomenal power of artificial intelligence and the emergence of picotechnology that we could scan and recreate a perfect synthetic copy of a brain. The functionality of every single neuron and their synaptic connections could be simulated in perfect detail. This new technology was orders of magnitude more effective compared to any other previously available, and it finally bridged the gap between a copy and its original, changing an apparently unavoidable postulate of reality, the idea that the copy of any object cannot be exactly the same as the original. However, the ability to create perfect copies of anything, including brains, was far from replicating their content, mind and consciousness. By year 2125, new brain scanners using millions of nanobots injected in the brain could dynamically read in real time all processes occurring in the host brain, including all electrical signals. All processes could be emulated in the replica, mirroring exactly what was going on in the original brain. In this way, we managed to simulate not only the brain's physical structure, but also its content, creating an exact clone. While synchronized, everything that occurred inside the original brain was replicated in its clone. We finally managed to duplicate the mind of a human being. However, the original mind and its copy ceased to be the same person as soon as synchronization was discontinued. From that moment, as soon the experience path of the two brains started to diverge, they became immediately two distinct things, or better said, two distinct persons. A synthetic clone brain was conscious, it had a mind on its own, feeling perfect continuity with the original. From his point of view, he was the same mind, the same person. Initially, mind cloning was tested on terminally ill patients. While the original body was still alive, the brain clone was kept unconscious, and only once the original passed away, the clone was awakened after being placed into a synthetic body. The synthetic body, equipped with a cloned mind, was called cybernetic organism, or cyborg. At all effects, we could say that the cyborg and the original person were the same. We felt the same, with a different body. In this new body we could live indefinitely, or change it when necessary. We finally defeated death. When I got aware that the first person went through this procedure successfully, I knew that I will never die of natural causes anymore. I was 162, and notwithstanding all our technology, my body was really struggling. I was one of the oldest persons on the planet, and I have been included in the list of people to be mind cloned as soon my body would have reached the end of its biological existence. This technique was severely regulated for obvious reasons and generally restricted to people that reached the end of their biological life, not having any chance of survival. I will have to die first in order to be resurrected with a new body. Mind cloning, differently from brain augmentation, has been generally restricted for young people, because, in this case, it implied the death of the person whose mind is cloned, and this was acceptable only if it occurred for natural causes. However, mind cloning and its downloading into a synthetic body provided the possibility to back up any mind at a certain point of their existence, making them immortal. This possibility created a huge pressure to extend mind cloning to younger people, or anyone whose life was at risk or threatened. Illegal procedures occurred with the killing of perfectly functional bodies, and, in some cases, creating living synthetic duplicates of people without the death of the original. Despite the possible misuse of this technology, we entered into a new era for humanity. The post-human race. Our civilization was evolving from a multitude of organic organisms with limited lifespan to a civilization composed by ever-living creatures. The difference between a mind-cloned cyborg and a natural human being was immense. The needs of these new human groups were totally different compared to the original Homo sapiens. The artificial body didn't have the basic needs of the natural organism: no need to be fed, no sexuality, no need to reproduce. The mind could feel love, but not physical attraction. This alone was more than enough to say that these transcendent humanoids were not humans anymore. They were something else. They were post-humans. And this is how this new category of humans has been called. Never the differences between humans have been so great. The differences at the basis of racial conflicts of the past were nothing compared to the immense gap between a natural biological human and a post-human. From year 2150, humans split in two different races, the Homo sapiens and the post-human race. Humanity managed to avoid the singularity holocaust, but a new problem emerged. Humans themselves were abandoning their own humanity. We were evolving into new races. It appeared that humanity was, again, facing the next existential threat on the way of evolution. We survived the risk of nuclear and biological wars, nanotechnology, artificial intelligence, and now we had to survive to ourselves. It was again the same issue coming back all the time. New technologies that have the potential to kill us needed to be mastered if we wanted to move forward and evolve. The more technologies become sophisticated and powerful, the more dangerous they are. We had no rest. As soon we found a reasonable way to deal with mind cloning, The circumstances forced us to move on and go a step forward. During the 2nd century, the need to leave Earth became impellent. It was not possible for every one of us to keep our biological body for too long, if we intended to save us and our planet. Our body was too demanding for natural resources and energy, too fragile for interstellar travel, and we couldn't possibly hope to find the exact environment needed for it on other planets. Only a limited number of people could remain biologically human, living on Mother Earth, a number not exceeding 2 billion. Everyone else had to become, at a certain age, post-human, or leave. Somehow, at a certain point, evolution obliged our mind to abandon his old glorious shell. The replicator machine that took us that far had to be left behind. We needed this to happen in order to survive and move forward. We needed a better survival machine, more flexible, with less needs to satisfy, more sustainable for the planet, more intelligent, with far better performances, able to live indefinitely, and colonize the cosmos. I was initially against mind cloning. The risks were immense, disturbing, it looked an unethical, sick practice. But this was the only way humans could survive in the long run, and I started to consider it acceptable, if applied only once the old body cannot live any longer. My body survived for 50 more years after mind cloning became commercially available, but at 212 years of age, my body was too old and I couldn't survive any more in it, regardless all replacements and treatments available. In year 2175, I had to be transferred into a completely new synthetic organism. The experience has been traumatic. I was looking at my old dead body, where I have been living for 212 years. It was lying abandoned, dead. I survived to myself. I should have been destroyed with it, as it has always been for thousands of generations before me. But I was still there. I felt the same as I have always been, my memories, my feelings, me. The question could be, if I was still a human being, or something else? Is the mind enough to be a human being? And what about if the mind is empowered with brain implants? What makes us humans? I evolved in something else, but as a child evolves into adulthood, I evolved into an artificial being, and, like a child ceased to exist as such, my human body ceased to exist in its original form. But as far the mind feels that there is continuity, and the original identity is maintained, it was like waking up from a surgery in the old days. The sensations conveyed by the synthetic body to the brain were weird, very different from how I was used to feel them. The speed of reaction and speed of thought could be tuned to give the same sense of the flow of time felt by the previous organic body. Over time, I started to increase them more and more to suit certain situations where better performances were necessary, and turned them down while dealing with natural human beings. The sense of touch could be also adjusted to be more or less sensitive. I could choose to feel pain or not. However, the most difficult adaptations were related to the fact that I didn't need to eat or drink. I didn't need to sleep, and the feelings, such as pain and pleasure, were very strange. Obviously, more work was needed to improve the cyborg, However, I adapted wishfully to the good and bad changes, because they were much better than being dead. I lived on Earth for a while after I became a post-human, but in 2250, I moved to the moon. Having lived all my life on Earth, I felt very attached to it, and the moon was an acceptable location, since I could travel back to Earth very often. As the time passed, people felt less attached to Mother Earth, and more keen to live at much greater distances. The MindNet. Year 2135 saw the rise of the MindNet that replaced the World Wide Web after 150 years of service and upgrades. The MindNet technology was available since long time, but we were not ready. It connected directly the minds of all augmented people that could count with brain implants and brain interfaces. Depending from the degree of brain augmentation, the users had different levels of connectivity available, up to the point where memories and experiences could be shared. It was possible to entertain conversations with anyone by direct brain-to-brain communication, using internal speech recognition. This platform represented the ultimate knowledge-sharing and social network tool. We became much closer to each other. Ideas circulated across the world without any mediation, from brain to brain. It was much easier to understand other people's point of view. This new way of engaging with each other had an impact far greater than anything we experienced in the past. In the developed world where people had access to this technology, something new was rising. The MindNet could be considered as the emergence of a distributed supermind at the civilization level. It represented the common intellect of humanity. It couldn't think on its own as yet, but we appreciated that a new entity, a new evolutionary step, was coming, something that could once again revolutionize our world and ourselves. A new way of living. Corporates and businesses have also been completely revolutionized. Large corporations have been replaced by distributed networks of services and goods, produced and shared by billions of people across the world. This new economic approach affected all sectors. The added value generated by any enterprise was calculated and immediately distributed to everyone contributing to it through a credit system. Businesses very rarely failed, they generally changed and evolved, following new conditions. This revolution increased hugely the transparency and efficiency of the economic system, freeing enormous resources and eliminating corruption and financial crimes. All of this made criminality driven by economic reasons obsolete. Conventional police forces almost disappeared, and new technologies made the judicial system much simpler and faster, not being possible for defendants to lie anymore. Prisons have been replaced by other types of punishments and limitation of freedom based on mental control. The food industry has been transformed from being based on agriculture and breeding that required the conversion of vast amount of land to fully industrialized processes, with artificial meat and vegetables constituting 90% of our diet. In this way, producing food became much less impacting on the environment. and more efficient. This was also the only way to produce food in limited space, and people got used to it. However, traditional food didn't disappear completely, and it could be enjoyed with moderation. Our cities transformed, busy business centers disappeared, no peak hour rush, no commuting. The main reason for people to congregate in significant numbers was mainly for leisure and entertainment. Free time was much more compared to the past, and, on average, people worked the equivalent of 1 or 2 hours per day. The main activity of the 23rd century citizens were the development of their intellect. Much more time was spent to plan for the future and contemplate the beauty of nature, enjoying it through a multitude of activities. Arts and entertainment exploded, freeing up mankind's talents, once constrained by the need to provide resources for our living. Personal flying vehicles, fully automated, became a useful means of transportation for medium-range trips. However, new transportation system, based on vehicles moving through vacuum tubes, became the most convenient system for popular routes. The vehicles were magnetically levitated, and the absence of friction made possible to reach speeds up to 8,000 kilometers per hour, making it the transportation of choice for medium and long routes on land, almost completely replacing traditional highways and flights. Short-range airplanes were used only over waterways, and suborbital flights for longer range across the oceans. Similar revolutions occurred in politics. Through the MindNet, it became possible to know in real time the preferences and opinion about policies and laws of every single citizen. Representation through conventional parliaments and parties was no longer necessary. Decisions were taken having direct and continuous knowledge of the population opinion about all possible alternatives. However, leaders and ministers had to be chosen and replaced, as it has always been, but the decisions-making process has been profoundly different from the past. The agenda was set by using the support of artificial intelligence, able to simulate all possible scenarios that may arise from the available alternatives. Direct feedback from the population was always available through the MindNet. However, leaders had the power to decide differently from the majority of the population, under certain circumstances, and in case of emergency. New technologies brought changes in every aspect of our lives. In a way, even if humanity has been expanding its domain immensely, extending his reach through space, people became closer to each other, sharing memories, knowledge, and experiences in a much more intimate way. The extended lifetime and permanent memory had a bonding effect for people, having many more opportunities to meet with each other and build long relationships lasting centuries. It was not unusual for an individual to know well thousands of people and have hundreds of friends. On the other hand, in many instances, the need to personally interact with one another for work has been reduced dramatically. The interactions were driven by will rather than need. From the age of 20 onward, things really started to change for a young person compared to earlier generations. Learning was fast and effortless, and all energy was dedicated to the understanding and practicing, with great gain in efficiency. Obtaining a degree in fields that once required 5 years of intense studies was done in months, allowing a student to acquire knowledge in many disciplines, improving hugely creativity and lateral thinking in an ever faster acceleration. We kept pushing the boundary of our knowledge, making its sharing immediate and effortless. Our place in the evolution of the universe. The destruction of everything we loved about our planet, combined with the new discoveries, made unequivocally evident what should really matter for us, as an intelligent species. First of all, we had a survival problem, and, in order to survive, three things were more important than anything else. Reinstating Earth ecological systems, and colonize space, while not losing control of our technology. Ultimately, survival depended also from our ability to determine and share common objectives across our entire civilization. This wouldn't be possible without developing sufficient social cohesion and harmony. It all landed in our ability to understand what is our place in the universe, embrace ethical principles, and develop the maturity necessary to survive the technological era. However, while the realization that only unity and commonality of intents could save us, the development of post-human races, and human augmentation in general, had the opposite effect, becoming the greatest divider in history. The root cause of this latest challenge was, as it has always been, wealth. The power of wealth, as a divider of our society, was not limited to reach or poor anymore. Wealthy people, having access to the new technologies, could now live indefinitely, be stronger, more intelligent, and be vastly more knowledgeable than any natural human. This situation created profoundly different types of humans, and, while part of the world population was thriving, using the new technologies, and living in restricted habitats, the rest was dying, overwhelmed by ecological disaster, global warming, and social collapse. By the mid of the 2nd century, we have seen enough to formally identify and categorize the main phases of the evolution of matter and life in the universe. Level 1. Raw matter, subject to random quantum fluctuations, but not subject to common physical laws. Level 2. Matter governed by laws, organized in atoms and molecules. Level 3. Unconscious life and living matter in general. Level 4. Conscious, free-willing intelligent life, composed by separate biological individuals, with limited lifespan, evolving through natural selection over a long period of time. Level 5. Intelligent life, composed by separate individuals, merged with machines, with unlimited lifespan, able to govern their own evolution, and able to colonize the universe. Level 6. Intelligent life, composed by individuals with indefinite lifespan merged into a collective mind across civilizations. Level 7. Maximum level of evolution, which characteristics were yet to be determined. The above levels became a sort of roadmap for humanity. Evolution is the mechanism that allows matter to move from one level to the next one. Up to a certain point, evolution is natural, governed by random changes and natural selection. This type of evolution leads to intelligent life and consciousness. Matter becomes conscious of itself. In order to go further, it is necessary for the intellect to take control of its own evolution. Evolution has to step up into a new dimension, not anymore waiting for random changes, but consciously re-engineering itself in order to achieve its own objectives. This is only possible by developing technology. Technology also brings a great danger, amplifying enormously the power of action that living beings decide to undertake, with the very high risk of hurting themselves. Therefore, evolution can take advantage of technology only if accompanied by wisdom. Wisdom and ethic are fundamental qualitative enabling factors for technological development, unavoidable conditions for moving up the stair of evolution. As far as the evolution of planet Earth is concerned, we could say that the transition from level 4 to level 5 was the most critical, and we were just in the middle of it. A possible universal convergence of all intelligent life towards a common goal was taking shape. Towards level 7, the maximum level of evolution may unify the intent of every intelligent being in the universe. It may be the ultimate purpose of life and matter. The multi-universe properties. By year 2100, the existence of the parallel universe was experimentally proven. It was finally possible to demonstrate that nature has the following main characteristics. The cosmos has 10 dimensions. 3 macro dimensions for space, 3 for hyperspace, and 3 micro dimensions existing at the permeability scale across space and hyperspace, plus time. The multi-universe is composed by many universes and anti-universes. All universes exist within the 3-dimensional space, and the anti-universes exist within the 3-dimensional hyperspace. The permeability scale corresponds to the Planck length, equal to 1.6 by 10 to minus 35 meters. In the absence of strong gravitational pull. However, it varies, depending from the intensity of the gravitational field. The stronger the gravitational field is, the larger the permeability scale becomes, and the more intense is the bubbling of particles. This means stronger vacuum quantum fluctuation. As the gravitational pull stretches the fabric of space, it enables more and larger particles to cross the boundary between the universe and the parallel universe. At the moment of the Big Bang, the gravitational pull was so large that the permeability scale became macroscopic, causing all matter and antimatter to collide simultaneously. In that moment, space had only 4 dimensions. All 10 dimensions merged into only 3 plus time. The 3 micro dimensions became macroscopic, overlapping with the 3 dimensions of space, and the 3 of hyperspace. The gravitational lens. It is possible to artificially stretch the fabric of space by using gravitational pull, increasing the permeability scale, and making possible for larger objects to go through the boundary between space and hyperspace. Space and hyperspace have non-local properties, which means that distances between the same 2 points are not equal if measured through space and hyperspace. Because of this property, if a spaceship crosses the boundary between space and hyperspace, traveling for 1 light year through the hyperspace, and returning back to space. The point of re-entry is not located 1 light year away from where the trip started, if measured through space. This happens because the geometry of space and hyperspace are not identical. They depend from the relative distribution of mass in the two universes. The discovery of these new properties have profoundly changed our view of the universe compared to the past, enabling the possibility of interstellar travels and efficient communication through space at large distances. By year 2112, a new superaccelerator, located in space, has been able to produce collisions so energetic to form artificial micro-black holes. They have been a key to cross the boundary of our universe, leading to the invention of the gravitational lens. The gravitational lens was a device able to stretch the fabric of space by using artificial micro-black holes positioned around a small volume of space. Initially only a few centimeters in diameter, the black holes were kept in position by centrifugal forces and used by their rotation at enormous angular speed. Because black holes couldn't be transported or safely produced on Earth, both the accelerator and the gravitational lens have been located in space, at the Lagrange point. The immense gravitational pull generated by the rotating black holes around their center of gravity stretched the fabric of space, making possible for elements larger than the Planck length to cross over. The first crossing has been made by a ray of light, in the form of a laser, beamed at the center of the lens, where it disappeared, not emerging from the other side of the lens. This was the first time we sent something outside our universe into the unknown. Soon after, other experiments followed, sending particles of various types. By year 2120, the door to the parallel universe was open. Another problem that was solved by using these properties was the communications lag caused by the limitation of the speed of light that made almost impossible to exchange data in reasonable time at large distances through space. It is possible to establish links between particles located in the two symmetric universes in a way that they react to each other's behavior. This property explains phenomenon like the particles' entanglement and the duality of the electrons that act as a wave and as a particle simultaneously. This characteristic of matter enabled a new way of communicating instantly across the universe. By using entangled devices, we have been able to tap into the parallel universe, providing a point-to-point instantaneous channel at any distance. The first device able to do so has been a transmitter using entangled particles. The transmitter and receiver have to be produced in the same location, and then they can be separated traveling through space, while the two devices will always remain in contact with no time lag. This was a tremendous milestone in the exploration of the universe, bridging the speed of light for communication across space. From that moment, spaceships enjoyed real-time communications with Earth and between themselves, with no time lag wherever they were located. The new, so-called trans-universal technology boosted space exploration tremendously. Space exploration. Humanity was getting ready to travel the universe by reinventing itself as space beings, able to live indefinitely outside our planet. But, in order to do so, we needed the means to travel to the stars, For this purpose, traveling at the speed of light was not good enough. In a society driven by an exponential rate of change, waiting 10 years to get to the nearest star was far too much. Not that time matters so much for a post-human traveler. With an infinite lifespan available, artificial bodies could wait or enter in a suspended animation for an indefinite amount of time. The need to go faster and not waste too much time traveling was not driven by the traveler limitations, but by everyone else. We needed to find other homes fast in order to alleviate pressure on Earth. We needed to find more space for an expanding civilization. We didn't have infinite time at our disposal, because most of the population was still composed by biological humans. The solution was found by traveling through hyperspace, using gravitational lenses to cross the boundary between space and hyperspace. The properties of the interface between the two universes revolutionized space traveling. Once a window between space and hyperspace is opened by a gravitational lens, also called space portal, it can be moved through space, from one place to another. But its position won't change from the hyperspace point of view, due to its non-local property. This means that, if two portals are close to each other, and then one of them is moved away, they remain close in the parallel universe, creating a bridge through space from one point to the other. The bridge is a wormhole in the fabric of space, which extremities can be arbitrarily moved. In this way, a spaceship can exit our universe and immediately re-enter in an arbitrary distant point. It is obvious that the second gravitational lens has to be transported through space in a conventional way, taking a very long time, but once it reaches its destination, any future travel is made instantaneously through the hyperspace. The technical difficulty to transport gravitational lenses was huge because the micro black holes have a large mass and inertia that has to be overcome when accelerating, requiring a lot of energy. A solution was later found by increasing the size of the black holes only once the final destination is reached, by feeding them with additional matter locally. While this new technology was under development, we were very busy colonizing our solar system. By year 2120, the first serious plans were drawn up for Mars' gradual terraformation, with the ultimate goal of making it habitable for humans in about 1,000 years. As the decades passed, a new generation of rockets was developed. Materials based on Pico technology enabled stronger, lighter and cheaper spacecraft. Engineered by artificial intelligence, the new systems have greatly reduced the launching cost. Alongside all of this, many important breakthroughs were made in the understanding of physical processes. Among many, the most significant was the confinement of antimatter. With stupendously high energy density, antimatter had the potential to be the ultimate source of energy and propulsion. Unfortunately, it was extraordinarily difficult and expensive to produce, contain, and handle antimatter. However, the access to the anti-universe made available an infinite quantity of antimatter. By year 2160, the first prototype of antimatter powered spacecraft was built, paving the way of interstellar travel. From 2165 to the end of the century, Various spacecraft were sent to Alpha Centauri, and the closest stars of our local group. The fastest of these new spaceships were capable of achieving 8 to 10% the speed of light, requiring about 40 years to reach their destination. These vessels were crewless, but equipped with powerful artificial intelligence units. Many probes were sent to explore interstellar objects of interest, and, after several decades of travel, the majority of them successfully reached their destinations. Each returned a massive quantity of data and visual information. One of the main targets was to prove the accuracy of the observation carried out from Earth with the super-powerful instrument available. At the top of the list there was, obviously, the search for life, and, from this point of view, the most interesting object to probe was a planet similar in size to Earth called Site 209, with over 70% of its surface covered in liquid water, and with an atmosphere rich in hydrocarbons. Unfortunately, life was not found in Site 209, but this outcome was very significant and useful to build reliable statistics about the presence of life in the universe. Far from being a disappointment, this finding was immensely valuable once seen from a different perspective. An habitable planet, free from life, was perfect as a new home. By the end of the 2nd century, the fastest spacecrafts were capable of sustained travel at 50% the speed of light. This is fast enough to reach nearby stars within relatively short time, and a new wave of deep space missions was launched, including trips to planets within 100 light-years from Earth. Interstellar travel increased greatly, and outposts on Alpha Centauri, Barnard's star, and Wolf 359 have been established. Environmental destruction. By year 2200, global average temperatures were 8 degrees higher than the pre-industrial time. Cities and decaying infrastructures lay abandoned throughout the world, surrounded by vast unusable wastelands, clogged with nitrogen, caused by excessive fertilization, and deprived from topsoil, being eroded by water, or blown away by droughts. Although carbon dioxide emissions fell sharply from 2050, the carbon dioxide accumulated in the atmosphere, and positive feedback loops made it too late to stop global warming. Greenland and Iceland lost their ice cover, pouring vast quantities of fresh water into the oceans, blocking the Gulf Stream and the global current, also called Great Conveyor Belt. This disruption of the water recirculation across all oceans had a huge impact on climate and its ability to sustain marine life. The loss of the global ocean's current caused seawater to stagnate, killing most of marine life. All fishes larger than a domestic redfish disappeared from the seas. Marine birds also went extinct. We killed our oceans. The sea breeze aroma that once inspired generations for thousands of years was gone. Replaced by poisonous stagnant gases, Earth started to look different even from space. Our blue marble sphere became a gray cloudy world. By the end of the 2nd century, we assisted to a new phenomenon playing out, which made the situation even more dramatic. Marine life decayed, producing hydrogen sulfide, a strong poisonous gas that, by venting into the atmosphere, killed most of the remaining terrestrial life along the coastlines and islands. The level of the oceans rose more than 4 meters, radically altering the geography of the world. None of the coastal cities could survive the combined effect of all these devastating consequences of our behavior. Earth was a dying planet, with a highly volatile climate and fluctuating extreme weather. What remained of humanity fled to high latitudes, where the climate was favorable enough to sustain high-tech cities. Most of the population was crammed into dense vertical structures around freshwater locations, far away from the coast, and highly dependent on advanced technology. At this point, losing our technology would have meant sure death. There was no way back.